Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard of the podcast, I'm joined by Amy Chapman. We're at 2:15, Thursday the 9th of October. What a glorious day in Brisbane, and welcome, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you, it's beautiful. I've been out for a 40k cycle already today in the heat. A bit windy, but otherwise beautiful.
40k's, you get, well, it would have been a bit hot.
It was. I'm a wannabe cyclist now, but maybe because my knees are so bad.
When did you start cycling?
Oh, I'm a very casual cyclist. Have all the gear, no idea, but probably post-football really. But to be honest, I don't have time with a toddler. So
Yeah, no, and so where did you cycle?
just did the River Loop this morning. Beautiful round Brisbane River. It's a bit of a classic. And I live on the River Loop, so it's helpful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And did you stop and get a coffee after with all your people? And
Halfway through, always.
All your gear?
Yeah, halfway through.
Halfway through?
Yeah, at South Bank, beautiful little spot there. I'm mostly there for the coffee, actually.
Yeah, well, that's a good. Yeah, I think a lot of cyclists. Well, not cyclists, I wouldn't know, but I think there's a lot of coffee shops that rely on cyclists. Now, we're coming into summer, but 2025. How would you describe it in your little world?
Oh, it has been such an interesting year for me. It's been my first year really out on my own. I've got my own startup, which has been amazing. So prior to that, I was working for the same company for 10 years. So it's been a really cool, wild ride. Some amazing highs, some lows, but also have a toddler at home, so they keep us going.
Amazing highs and lows. Obviously, that's a bit of a sport reference too. Sport and business. There's some lessons that learned. But what about having a toddler and a family, the lessons from sport?
Yeah, I think what I've learnt mostly is that your time is no longer yours when you have a toddler, which is amazing. And she's a little legend. I've tried to enroll her in football already, but she's not so keen on organised activities. She's more just unorganised chaos. So yeah, it's been an amazing year. I only got married last year, so there's lots going on.
Wow. There you go. And your own startup is exciting but nerve-wracking, and all the emotions, as you said. Do you want to share a little bit about it? Can you share?
Oh, yeah. So I was obviously working for the same company in MedTech and medical devices. So my role was to go into surgeries and assist surgeons with, some machines that remove tumours, brain tumours, spinal equipment. So very technical, and I absolutely loved it. But it was interesting how having a child, so I went on maternity leave, just changes what you want in life, the pace and the things that you're really passionate about. So I think I never came back with the same passion after being on maternity leave. So that kind of was that moment in time where I thought, actually, you know what, I want to do my own thing here. So I've got a business that helps athletes in particular get into MedTech and get into rewarding careers, transitioning to rewarding careers and upskilling them. So we've got a course. And then I have a top secret little medical device coming as well, which I'm pumped about.
We won't go online there, but in terms of transitioning from playing sport to life after, it's a topic that's discussed greatly amongst Scoreboard, and certainly there's a bit of a cliff sometimes, and there's people trying to help. How would you describe your transition from sport into business and also identity?
Yeah, fascinating topic, really. I think. Even though I felt that I'd set myself up really well for life after being part of the Matildas and playing football professionally, I still really struggled. And I think even from the outside in, that people would say, oh, no, she seamless transition. But actually internally, I think that identity piece, that sense of community where every single day, all your best friends was also your work. You would also have that, I describe it as football and football training, for example, is mindfulness. You go there and no matter what's happened during your day, you're only thinking about that next pass, that next run. So you have to be present in that moment. And I think it's taken me years to be able to replace that mindfulness that sport brings. And also you never quite get that adrenaline rush that you had before. So although I transitioned into a sales role, which I think is excellent for sports people, and into something that involves the human body, which we're clearly passionate about, it was a tough journey, and that's why I'm so passionate about, helping others.
Yeah, that connection to something, I suppose, and the repetitiveness, and also you're getting paid for it as a job, and then all of a sudden it's not. The difficulties, I'd imagine, very, very high, and some people might go, oh, you're sports, it's not. Like, you're a human being, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's the big community factor, because all of a sudden, once you're out, you don't actually have time to go and catch up with a lot of those friends as well, and you actually then don't have as much in common with them as you thought you did, because you're now working full time. You've got to be in this corporate vibe, and I think a lot of athletes struggle from that transition from change rooms to corporate environments. So that's why I'm so passionate about helping them. But I think also a lot of athletes struggle about when to call time on their career. For me, in essence, I was unlucky but lucky, but that decision was essentially made for me. I'd had 7 knee operations, including doing my
ACLs.
3 ACLs. Yeah, keeping the surgeons in business, really.
Full circle, working different areas of surgery, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that was actually what sparked my passion for MedTech, because I originally wanted to go in, and I was very passionate about why women do their ACLs. 8 times more likely to do it than males. So I've always been naturally drawn to understanding that and what we're doing, what are the innovations in that space. So that's why I landed in MedTech, because of that. But it also meant that decision was kind of out in one tackle. My entire Matildas career, all my income, everything went, because there were 6-month contracts at that time, and that's a 12-month injury. So yeah.
We've had a couple of discussions about ACLs. I'm going to digress here for a second. One was a MedTech company based out of the US, ISOFIT, that was helping to try and prevent it. And they mentioned along the lines of there's a huge amount of ACL injuries from a youth point of view, maybe like 14, 15-year-old people. And then we see the AFL this year, and again, like it's, I don't know whether they've gone up in terms of ACL injuries from last year, but it just seems more often. Have you got a theory on why?
Many theories. Scientifically proven or not is another thing. But actually, this has also been the worst year in the Premier League, in the men's Premier League as well for ACLs. So we're talking players who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're still not quite figuring it out. So it's fascinating. Obviously, there's a big push on players being overloaded, not doing the right movements. On the female side, obviously, we're anatomically built different, and we do load our knees more naturally. We have these childbearing hips or wider Q angles, which do put a bit more pressure on your knees. So we are naturally wired to do that, and there's so much research coming out in hormones, menstrual cycles, and that how that affects your risk of tearing your ACL at certain times. So the US women's national team, who are a lot better funded than a lot of other countries, are doing some amazing work in trying to control and manage the loading of their players based on that. So I mean, we could probably do an entire podcast on that.
Yeah, I've got another question on that, like the specialisation of sports at an earlier age.
Yeah.
Have you got a theory? Like, I mean, I see it quite a bit, particularly like maybe cricket for younger boys. It's like, because it's summer, so you play it, and then there's winter cricket, and then there's other sports people are specialising, but at the ages of 14, 15, 13, it's like one sport. You know, maybe there's a bit more of like the same repetitive motion on a particular part of the body that may cause injuries. I don't know. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the irony, is we don't have the research on that, because a lot of these they're not professional, unless some of the Chelsea academies, they're bringing these players in at 8 or 9 years old. So they could probably come up with the data, but that's not relative to the general population either. They're pretty elite already. So fascinating discussion.
Yeah. We have digressed, but I'm going to go back to football for a second, and your relationship. From the outside, it still seems that you're very deeply passionate and deeply involved in the game through your commentary gigs. Is that a fair assumption that you still love the game?
Very much so. I think it's been an incredible 4 or 5 years for the Matildas, for football, but and more generally for women's sports. So I'm very much at the forefront of that, and I love to see that rise in interest. But yeah, incredibly passionate. I love the commentary side of things. It's, although I couldn't be involved in the most recent World Cup as a player, that was probably the next best thing. I got to be the voice of those games, including the World Cup final. So I think that's amazing. And they're also still all my friends. So there's a fine line, actually, because you have to sometimes be critical as a pundit as well. You have to criticize these people who you played and spent day in, day out with. I've had a couple of parents message me saying I'm a bit harsh here or there, but it's part of the game, and I love it, and I'm confident enough to give a strong opinion on those things. So I enjoy it.
The commentary gig, where did that come from? Because that's something that's I'm a little bit curious about myself, but also like I'm going, it seems like it's an art / skill, because if I watch sport, I'd be like, oh yeah, oh that's good, oh nice, but actually pinpointing for people listening must be a little bit tricky to start with.
It is an art, and I think how I am casually watching at home on the couch, I can tell you I'm very different to how I am.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like, what's she talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm a bit more controlled in the commentary box. But it is an art. We've seen so many people attempt this across different sports, particularly ex-players. There's a real art in bringing the right tone to your voice, but also really adding colour and value to what you're saying. It's not just stating the obvious. I think that there is a real art, and people just get a little bit tongue-tied and all these sorts of things. And I think one of the hardest things is actually you're often calling teams. It's easy when I'm calling the Matildas because I know it inside out. I don't even have to do any prep. But when you're doing South Korea versus North Korea, very difficult to find background information on the North Koreans. So that there's an art in the pronunciations and that history and trying to add colour when it's pretty tough when you get probably 7 seconds to do it.
Yeah, and the data point of view as well, like going, memorising maybe where they've come from, the clubs that they've played for, the types of this is their leading goal scorer, etc. How much time goes into that?
Many days. So I was actually the first female co-commentator as well of the A-League men's, which is, for me, I'm passionate about that because we're trying to get more visibility of women all across sport, whether that be on boards or in CEO positions, referees, whatever. I also think it's really important that we change the way it sounds as well. So that was something that was incredibly important to me. But because I naturally love watching football, it does come naturally to me. If you turn around and said, Amy, co-commentate a basketball game, I would struggle because I haven't followed that my whole life.
You don't have the strategy. You don't not reading the plays and understanding you played your whole life. In terms of overload of football, your relationship with football, can you talk about that from an early age? Again, from Albury to now, where you're at now, the ups and downs, and where there's points where you're like, I just don't want to talk about, I just don't want to think about football.
Yeah, I think I started playing when I was about 7, and only because my brother was playing and it was easy for us. Mum was taking my twin sister and I to trainings anyway, so we were sitting in the car, so she thought you may as well jump out and join in. And then we loved it, and my brother was super competitive. He was constantly pushing us. And having a twin also meant we were constantly trying to outdo each other, and you also have someone to pass to at all times, so that's helpful. So that's where
shoot against.
Exactly.
Two-player game.
Exactly. I only played with boys up until I was 16. I'd never played in a females team, so that was unique. And I loved it. In fact, I went a little bit too far and got a little undercut, just wanted to be one of the boys, wanted to blend in, genuinely wanted to play for the Socceroos. Didn't realise that wasn't an option. Hadn't heard of the Matildas at that time, so I'm so glad that has changed and that visibility has changed. But yeah, I think for me, I've always loved the game. I think the hardest time to love the game was maybe the first 2 or 3 years after retiring, and that, you'd sort of have a bit of a conflicting feeling watching the Matildas going, that would have been me. I would have been on that tour. So that there was that little bit of jealousy, but you work through that and then you just start to give back to the game in other ways. And it was by chance I fell into commentary. It was pretty intentional when I became a director on Football Queensland because it was important to me to give back to the game that gave so much to me.
Yeah, then the jealousy, I suppose you could reframe it in your head as you being part of a puzzle, being part of the piece of the puzzle that has driven the game forward. And you feel proud?
Absolutely. And there's hundreds and hundreds of people who came before us, and everyone goes through this phase. And even this current block of incredibly famous and very talented role models we have in the Matildas, their time will come where they need to transition. And it will be difficult. And so I think it's just that initial phase, helping them through that first 1 or 2, 3 years to find a new passion and a new way to give back to the game that adds value. And I think that's how I found that with commentary. Where I still get to be heavily involved and a little bit of a face on the voice of the game as well, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, not just from a domestic point of view for yourself, but also internationally going over to the US and playing in LA. Do you want to talk about that time when maybe Bex was over there at the same time?
Yeah, loved it. Yeah, so David Beckham had just signed for the LA Galaxy men's team, and then I'd signed for the women's team. So that was amazing. I played 2 seasons over in LA. That was the time when the US women's competition was the best in the world, but it had just crashed. It went under. It had no money, no funding. So then they went to a semi-professional, and that wasn't the plan. I was going over there hoping to play in the pro league, and then it just went under. So I still went anyways and absolutely loved it. And it's such a different life. It's such a celebrity lifestyle over there. And really loved it. There was 7 international players. We were all living in the same big mansion that was owned by the club, and such a unique experience. And actually I was quite intentional because I was always a very technical footballer, but I lacked that physicality, and the Americans are such strong, powerful sprinters that I wanted to challenge myself where I wasn't very good, and I very much did that in that time, and that got me back into the Matildas, which was great.
Yeah, the technical side of things, where did that come from? Did you love the data side of things as a child? Did you love watching games? Did you love commentating games as a youngster? Like, where did that come from, and that sort of the superpower that you had as opposed to being the big rough player?
Yeah, well, I think obviously just genetics meant that I was never going to be a big, strong, tall timber. But I was also just someone who was really passionate about mastering things. Like I was doing probably 3,000 juggles at the age of 11. So I just wanted to be able to master things. So that therefore gives you really great foot skills. Now, I didn't grow up watching any football, really. You couldn't watch the Premier League. There was no women's football on TV. The Socceroos I would watch during the World Cup cycle, but mostly I grew up watching AFL, and had that been an option, I would have maybe looked at that. But I love that there's so much to the game of football, and I'm very biased. It is the world game, but I love that it's a decision-making sport. It's not if you're 6'6", you're going to be successful. You still need to be incredibly agile, skillful, be able to read the game. So I love that there's so many elements you need to master. And then, so I think that's why I was, just that competitive nature that comes.
And then knowing your position within teams, I want to talk about that, because it's a question I ask a lot to athletes and former athletes, is around your role, being comfortable with your role within a team, various different other teams, but also, obviously focusing on your own skills as well.
Yeah, that changed and it evolved as you grow up. I think I originally came out as a striker. I was super, super quick, and then after I did my ACL twice before the age of 21, I probably lost that little X factor of pace and power that I had. So I had to almost evolve even at the age of 21 the game. So that's when I really started being a bit more technical. And so I went from playing up front to probably like an attacking midfielder, a bit more central, someone who controls the game and tempo and those kind of things. Also, in football, we changed from like a 4-4-2 formation into a 4-3-3. And that's globally, the whole world went, actually, this is a better way to play. And then Sam Kerr came in, so I thought, not going to compete with her, so I better reinvent myself again. So it kind of it evolves in time, but that's essentially how I roll with it. And different coaches work different ways. Sometimes they were saying, really highlight your strengths. You're great in technical areas, very clever, great vision. So focus on that. And others would just say, you can't win a header, or you can't, you're sick, 5 foot nothing. So it's whether you put the emphasis on what you're good at or what you're not, your strengths.
Yeah, and then what about the importance of coaches growing up? Do you remember some coaches? Do you remember the ones that you thought they got the best out of me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that probably links nicely back to that, around those coaches who would focus on the things you weren't great at and try and put energy on that. And I think as I've evolved, and even in the corporate world, I'm a lot more find those natural skills and those natural strengths that make you elite and own them. I think you spend a lot of time comparing yourself, like I don't have a vertical jump as good as Sam Kerr, so do I just work on that, or do I focus on what I am better at than the other players around me? So you have that little imposter syndrome. It's absolutely there. Even the top players in the world are constantly like, oh, my left foot isn't quite as good as that person. So I think I wish I knew then what I know now around strengths-based and just owning that, because you wouldn't get in your head so much, I think.
Yeah, and work ethic. You want to talk about that for you and how important that was for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was naturally ridiculously competitive.
You reckon that's the twin sister thing? Or brother, or something early that kind of went, I just want to beat these guys?
I do think there is something, someone should do some studies on twins, because I think it's tough, but you're always being compared. It's wild. And my older sister has twin identical 11-year-old boys, and their competitiveness against each other, it's like the rest of the world doesn't exist. And sometimes it's amazing to watch, and other times it's actually quite sad, because if one may not enjoy a sport if the other one's slightly better at it. So you're like, they've just lost that love because of that direct competitiveness.
Did you say older sister?
Yes. Sister? Yeah, older sister. Yes, and my older sister has twins. We've got twins everywhere in our family. So
so not your older twin or younger twin?
No. So I've got an older sister, then I've got a twin and a brother.
And in your twin, who's the oldest or youngest?
Oh, yeah, I lost that race, actually. My twin is older.
So maybe there could be a little bit of from birth competitiveness going.
And she brings that up often.
10 minutes? Or?
5. She won the race to life.
So there you go. So you're like, from that, you're like, no, I'm going to win this race.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something there.
And there's definitely something in the twin thing. There's definitely something in having older siblings and or a brother. Like he used to be furious at us if he'd want us to bowl, to him in cricket, and he'd be fuming if it wasn't quick enough for him. So he'd just be like, go and practice. So we would literally just practice to bowl quick enough for him to enjoy his
so there's a couple of things there. There's competitiveness and probably most likely resilience.
Yeah.
And your brother probably is like, no, bowl faster, smash. Go collect it, bowl faster.
Yeah. Yeah, but we loved it, and I do think the childhood makes a massive difference, and the friends you choose to hang around with and that kind of stuff.
Looking back on some of these traits, quote unquote, interesting podcast recently with Chris Titley, the basketballer, and he was just saying, I don't buy into these buzzwords. Life is just life, and you look back and go, someone goes, you were very resilient. Was I? Oh, okay. Are you a bit like that as well, like looking back, going, or were you kind of going, I need to be competitive early, I need to be resilient, all this sort of stuff early?
Well, yeah, I'm a bit more on the theory that everything is always evolving. There's times when I'm not resilient whatsoever, and other times where I've been incredibly resilient. But it's constantly evolving, and I think if I look at the injuries I had, I don't take life too seriously whatsoever, and I quite like that mantra. But it is that character building. You do learn so much from those tough moments, and people from the outside looking at you going, how did you come back from 3 ACLs? Or other people look at you like, you're actually crazy. Like, why? And you're not even earning good money. So why do you keep doing this? So you kind of have those people who look at you like you're a bit crazy, and others who are inspired by you. So it depends. It's in the eye of the beholder, really.
No, true. And the why, you mentioned the why then. Why was the why for you to play for Australia and the Matildas and come back after your injuries? I'm going to hone in on that.
Yeah. Look, there's probably an element of I was naive about how big of an injury those ones were.
It was 12 months. People have been, I think Lincoln McCarthy from the Lions has been out 2 years in a row now. Like he went back for one game and it was like, oh no, Paul, it's quite a horrific injury.
Oh yeah, it's as bad as it gets. And someone who now has a MedTech background, you're better off breaking your, depends what fracture, but you're better off breaking your leg 2 to 3 times than you are in terms of recovery time and an ACL. But I went to a World Cup at 6 months post ACL.
No.
That was an under-20s World Cup. It would be unheard of now. I wasn't very fit.
What's those things that you can take, the injection things you can have?
Cortisone,
that's
yeah.
The one. Yeah.
None of those, and I didn't have the LARS. I didn't have any fancy. I just had a traditional ACL using your hamstring, and I went to Russia for a World Cup at 6 months. I'd played one friendly game against boys and then went to a World Cup, which is wild. Nowadays it would never be allowed. Maybe I paid for that slightly in the longer term, but I've forgotten what your original question was.
I've been listening, so I've forgotten too. But it was the why. The why did you get back after these injuries? And for people going, oh, there's no money in it. Why are you doing it?
Yeah. You know what I did learn throughout those things is to sometimes you have to really bring back your major goals. I didn't come back because I wanted to play for the Matildas again from those ACLs. I came back because I just wanted to play one more game. And then I go, well, maybe I'll just play one more season. And then it was, so if you can break those goals down into smaller, manageable bite sizes, that's how I think I kept going. If you look too big far ahead, you'll go, holy God, look at the pace of Ellie Carpenter. I'm never going to get back to that again. But you just break it into bite sizes, and then you end up back there and you're like, oh, here I am.
Here I am. The big, hairy, audacious goal. Did you have one at all, though?
Oh, I'm a bit more of a playing for the Matildas for sure, and just playing at the top of my game. I think, but I'm actually much more of a believer on those daily consistent goals than I am of the whole big, hairy, audacious. Like, I like it, it's catchy, but
the BHAG. Everyone loves an acronym too.
Yeah, they do. I'm just a bit more. Someone come up with a clever everyday habits one. I'm a bit more on that train.
Journals. Do you journal?
No.
Did you want a journal? No, nothing to do with journaling. Oh, look, I'm not a journal. Don't worry. There's a lot of athletes out there. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, no.
They look back and they say, okay, look how far I've achieved, or that day that I was down and where I've come from.
No, I know plenty of people who did do that. Not for me. Probably could have benefited from that.
You never know, do you?
Yeah, no, I'm not a sit down, kind of write things down kind of person.
What about a visualizer? Were you a visualizer?
I mean, I had some posters on the wall, but no, I didn't have vision boards or anything like that.
No, before the game.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
like
manifesting.
So we've got the stadium coming up, got the 8 o'clock, and so I can get there at 6, and this is where I position, and this is where the crowd's going to be, and all this stuff.
Yeah, sorry, I was picturing a vision board there. No, yeah, very much so. Absolutely, I think we all do that. We try and picture ourselves scoring a ridiculously good volley or something like that, which happens in training, very rarely in games. So yeah, absolutely, and I think that just builds up your confidence, and you've got to be coming out with that little bit of ego and that little bit of confidence. So you have to, make it up in your head if you need to.
Okay. Ego, arrogance, confidence, selfishness, these traits as a professional player, do you need them?
No, I don't think you do need them. It depends how much talent you've got, I think. But I've seen, to be fair, the people I've seen who are the most arrogant actually never reach their potential. So I'd probably say the people who are incredibly humble, like Sam Kerr, she's actually incredibly humble and she is so talented. She could have mastered quite literally 10 different sports and been at the top of the world in those sports. But she's incredibly humble. She's very down to earth. I've seen more people be successful that are down to earth than I have with arrogance.
With commentating, when you get a bit of a broader lens on players, you see some skills or some types of body language now that you can almost be like an oracle and say, that player, watch that player.
Yeah, 100%. I think because particularly when you train with them day in, day out, and we actually had one coach, she was a Dutch coach. She didn't last too long with the Matildas. She was a little bit army-like, I would say, for the Australian personality types. But she was incredibly structured. She used to make us list what it was that were our weaknesses of our other players. So she would say, for someone like me, would you put the ball in the air to someone like Amy? And the whole team would go, no, she's tiny. And then they're like, well, would you give the ball to Claire on her left foot? And everyone's like, no, she doesn't have a great left foot. So she would really highlight those individual characteristics about people. It wasn't received well. It didn't last too long, but it was an interesting tactic of just honesty and transparency. And I think actually athletes are very naturally good at understanding what their strengths are and where they need work.
No, it's interesting. What was that TV show where they voted you off the island? It was only and you had to vote your peers off, and he was like, and then you've been voted off the island by your peers. Like the reverse of a Players Player Award. It was a reality TV show maybe 10 years ago.
It's brutal. I mean, there's Survivor vibes. Yeah.
And that sort of similar thing of like, name your weakness and whatever. But feedback is interesting because I've had different thoughts on feedback, and feedback is a gift, and feedback is people at a young age are like, I don't take feedback, I'm a really good player. But then towards the end of their life, they're like, I wish I listened to a bit more instead of that. Where were you on the feedback thing?
Oh, I'm very pro feedback, and actually transitioning into corporate world, I've been blown away by how little they give, and if they do, it's always dancing and tiptoeing around things. Whereas I think athletes are wired to get feedback, because the way we see it is if they're not giving you feedback, they're not in your plans. You're not in their plans, sorry. So they're not thinking about you. So if a coach hasn't come to me and said, Amy, you should have done this here, they're not investing in you as a player. So actually, I think it can cause, sometimes for athletes, if you're hiring athletes, it can cause more damage if you're not giving them both positive and negative feedback, because with your athlete mindset on, it can be a question mark.
And now you're a commentator, you're giving direct feedback to lots of people live. Right?
I know.
And then you mentioned that sometimes that you get a little text from the parents or something, or them saying, well, but you have to be honest, that's a job, right?
Exactly. I've had a couple of messages where they're like, you're a bit harsh there, and you sort of like, you've got to remember you're completely in the moment, and we are in the game as well. So sometimes you are saying, oh, that was a shocker, or
looks like they've had a big night the night before.
Exactly, yeah. You're not throwing them under the bus their entire career, but you're talking about that moment, what they could have done better. But there is an art to do that well.
Yeah, and then running your own business now with everything that's, basically, and also being a parent as well, which is the most important job, but everything's on you now, and the pressure. Do you feel pressure? Do you feel pressure now?
Yeah, yes and no. I love a bit of pressure. And I think I transitioned into a sales role. It was deeply technical in MedTech, but I actually love that for athletes as well, because we love being rewarded on performance. And I think sales roles do that really well. So if you are hiring an athlete or you're thinking about that, I think that's a great thing to think, give them uncapped opportunity. And I thrived on that. The better I did, the more money I made, or the more opportunities that came for you. I would struggle in a corporate role where I'm next to someone who's doing a terrible job and I'm doing a great job, and we're getting rewarded the same. So I love that. And so even in the other roles that I'm doing now, I've got more than enough intrinsic drive to be successful in whatever it is. So I thrive on that.
As long as you love it as well, I suppose. Doing something you're not really enjoying probably is not a great start, I would have thought.
100%. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. And that's actually also a luxury. Not everyone can be passionate about the work they do. But when the time comes when you get a chance, grab that with two hands, because that, particularly in sales, gosh, I would really struggle to sell something that I'm not passionate about, or influence others on something that doesn't mean something to me.
Do you read stuff on high performance? Like, do you read books, or do you listen to podcasts, or are you just kind of a bit like you love your music, or you love a good trashy TV or something?
Yeah, great question. I'm not like a listen to inspirational, sales people or anything like that.
24/7 hustle hashtag.
Absolutely not. Find them quite cringy, but. Yeah, no, I'm probably a closet nerd. I'm a closet learner. So I'll listen to a podcast on the history of some sort of medical something or other. Like, love that kind of stuff. I'm like
you're a learner.
I'm
you're
a nerd.
Learner.
I am.
And you're confident, and you're competitive, and you're resilient. Lots of traits of high performers per se, even though some people say you just do it right. You're not doing it to be a high performer. Now, we've got some other questions in around the Scoreboard podcast, which I do with some guests, which is fun. The first one is your all-time favourite sporting moment. I think I might know what it is, but I don't. I mean, I preface this that it shouldn't include yourself.
Yes, and it wouldn't.
Because that gets people out of their comfort zone. They go, that's the time that I scored it. Not about you.
Yeah, no. Look, a few come to mind. A couple of years ago, I probably would have said the Kathy Freeman 2000.
What a moment.
Oh.
And 25 years this year, and it's been replayed again. And you can watch it 1,000 times. And that's what I love about a good sporting moment. You can watch it 1,000 times.
Exactly. That, for some reason, I mean, I've never, ever been passionate about 400 metres, but something about that iconic moment, who she was, all of that.
The expression on her face as she finished, like, it was just this sort of like this. I mean, she talked about it recently publicly. Yeah. She was looking at her time and she was disappointed. And that was it. Like, she goes, it was not a great time.
Yeah.
And they said, was it relief? She goes, no, it wasn't relief. I was just disappointed with my time. But I think the whole world saw relief and saw, it was just like, you can't, like, picture says 1,000 words, right?
Oh, I think that moment is iconic for a million reasons. It's just her athleticism representing Indigenous people, women. It was just incredible to see a female achieving that on the stage, on the world stage. But I will actually trump that because obviously the Matildas most recently, I am biased in that respect, but their game against France here at Suncorp, that penalty shootout, was by far the coolest thing I've ever commentated, B, watched, and see the impact. So holistically, I talk about Kathy Freeman. So she had 8.1 million people watch her for that race. There's only one thing in history that got more people watching it, and that was the Matildas, which is 12.1. So very cool, the fact that they're both females, sporting incidences or events. So I put those two, 1 and 2, Matildas. I probably put, maybe because it's fresher, and just because they were all my friends as well. So it's incredible.
Also being in Brisbane.
Right here, Suncorp. Just also.
Did you, as a commentator, were you standing up? Were you kind of sitting down? Like, what was the, like, did you go up and down?
I've got some funny.
Filming you?
Yeah, no, but so it's so funny. One of the journalists who I've been working with, she was in front of me. When we won, she dislocated her shoulder celebrating, like punching the air fist. I threw my phone by accident, 7 rows ahead of me just from celebrating. But actually with my commentator hat on, the guy who was commentating with me, so we were commentating for the world feed. So if every country listening in English was listening to us, so an English guy, he does the Premier League regularly, he's English, so he wasn't quite as emotionally involved. I was crying, and then I literally said, I feel sick about 3 times. So not the highest quality of commentary, I wouldn't say, but it was genuine
honesty,
passion.
Transparency.
Yeah, like when Mackenzie Arnold, who I've literally known my whole career, gets up, takes her own penalty, and then turns around and saves it. I was literally, all I said for 3 times in a row was, I feel sick. But it was probably a reflection of the entire country.
I think it was a reflection of all of Australia. Yeah. Sick too in this time.
Yeah.
And just the highs and lows. What a moment, by the way, and great to reminisce because we could talk about that and watch it 1,000 times.
Where were you when that happened?
I was at my neighbour's house. So I'd been at the Brisbane Lions game with my 2 sons, and we left at 3/4 time because both games were finishing at the same time. And we're like, we got to get back to this Matildas game, right? So we get back and we get an Uber. We're like watching it on the TV, and we get home and it was just full time into extra time. Right? Yeah. And so then we rush over to the neighbours where there's about 4 different neighbours together, and they're all watching in this pool house together, and mums and dads are like, and we're like, yeah, no, we saw, we're in the taxi, and then we just watched the shootout with I'd say about 20, or 4 families, in front of this pool house, and just like literally just screaming.
Yeah.
Screaming. And then I've got a video of it, but
That's incredible. I think
it was just the brought communities, brought everyone together.
Yeah. You hear people like, who were at the Gabba and the entire Gabba stopped, all the players stopped, all stopped and watched.
We hightailed. I guess Adelaide,
and sorry, even at the MCG, it was that one there, and I think actually Fed Square was absolutely packed.
Sorry, Lions, not that night, but we left early because there was something more important. And it was, I wouldn't say partially to do with the traffic, but the fact that it was an exciting game as well that we were going to get home because everyone's like, are you watching this game? You're like, yeah, we are. And they're like, no, we're watching this game now.
Yeah, and awesome. People stop me all the time and say where they were in that moment. I have friends, obviously I worked in surgery a lot, so I had friends who were literally like, we had 4 operating theatres where they had it up on their phone showing and everyone was watching it as well. I'm like, that's just, it's iconic and it's amazing. It was obviously my good friends, but more importantly, women and football, I think.
Such a good moment and a good elevation from where we are now, and hopefully more elevation as well. Now, Scoreboard does have a sponsor in SwiftX, which is Australia's Australia's most trusted crypto exchange with over 1.1 million users in Australia and New Zealand. As part of that sponsorship, we do a little segment called the Bucket List, and that is a sporting event that you haven't attended live thus far that you would love to attend as part of their new campaign. Where can crypto take you? Where could crypto take you, Amy?
I would love crypto to take me probably to Brisbane 32, which means probably be a cheap trip for them given we're in Brisbane. But we never.
If we get tickets, it's going to be hard to get tickets, but if we can watch the live,
it'll be incredible. I think the Olympics, probably more generally the Olympics. The Matildas didn't qualify for the whole